Hi everyone, I'm Laura Max Rose, the author and founder of www.thelightfiles.com, and I am honored to be here today with Carmen Martinez and Laura Roseman. Carmen and Laura are the authors of a heart-wrenching book called Another Day with Her. Another Day with Her is the story of Carmen's best friend and Laura's only sister who lost her life on April 20th, 2011, after committing suicide and suffering for a long time with bipolar disorder. I'm here today to talk to them about the stigmas of mental illness in minority communities, and what we can do to make sure horrible tragedies like this don't happen again in the future. Carmen and Laura, thank you both so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
As I said, it really is an honor to be sitting down with you. I read this book from start to finish, taking a break only to eat dinner. It was impossible to put down. It was absolutely gut-wrenching to read about both of your experiences losing your best friend and your sister, Latrice. What was that day when you got that phone call that Latrice was gone like for you? How do you remember that day as vividly as you did in the book?
Absolutely. I remember, oh my God, yes.
She actually called me first. She called me, and at that point we were kind of struggling back and forth. She had kind of had her symptoms back with bipolar disorder. And so she called me right when it happened, and I remember I was at a Best Buy. I was at a Best Buy, and I saw her calling me, and I was like, oh, because we couldn't get in contact with Latrice earlier that morning. I had spoken to her briefly the night before.
You said in your book that you had spoken to her, and she had asked you if you were awake.
Yeah, it was kind of an odd call, because she would always call me, and it would never be a 2-minute conversation. We would always just talk about different stuff. So when she called me that night, it was late, and she was like, are you up? And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong? And then I think I was kind of dozing off, and she was just like, yeah, I just wanted to know if you could talk. I'm like, yeah, what's the matter? And then she kind of paused, and then she was like, no, I'm good, we'll talk tomorrow. And I was like, you sure? I'm up. And that was it. And she was like, good night. And that was the last time I talked to her. So when Laura called me, she had called me earlier that day, and she was, we couldn't get in contact with her. And so when she called and I saw the caller ID, I was like, oh, she's probably at the house. And that's when she kind of told me those news. So
Yeah, I was actually at work. I was at work, and I remember I was doing hair, and I remember a phone call, and I was like, okay, finally my mom's calling. She's like, she's gonna tell me they found her. She was just busy. She was just doing something, because prior to that she was supposed to come in and get her hair done. So I was waiting on her to say, all right, I'm coming. Earlier that day she had sounded beautifully, like she was like, all right, running errands, I got a couple of things to do. And so she sounded like the Latrice that I knew. She sounded like my sister was back. That's what I was thinking in my brain. I was like, great. So when we couldn't contact her, I was like, okay, this is weird, but sometimes I know that whenever she's working with clients, she doesn't answer her phone, so I just put it to that. So whenever my mom finally called me, actually it was my cousin, and I heard screams on the other end saying, she did it. And I'm like, what? And they're like, she did it. She shot herself. And I just remember dropping everything, grabbing my purse and my keys, and my clients are like, what's wrong? And I just started screaming, and they were like, you can't drive like this. You cannot drive like this. And so my client, she was like, I'll take you there. And I just remember, like, is she alive? Is she dead? Is she alive? She's got to be alive. I know she's alive. She's okay. And that's when I called Carmen, and I was like, Carmen, she did it. She did it. And Carmen was like, what? Wait, what? And I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday.
yeah,
So
I think we both felt the same way, because when I was driving there, and it's all the way there on the north side, so it's a 45-minute
Other side
drive,
of
and I
town.
really remember getting there in like 10 minutes. I don't even remember.
You had
just
said
driving.
in the book that whoever was driving you was following the rules and following the speed limit.
Right, and I
you
was
were
like,
thinking,
speed up, like she's driving
Yeah.
speed limit. I'm like, if we get pulled over, just let the cops follow us, because in my mind it was the same thing. I was thinking, oh, we're just going straight to the hospital, like.
And you
just
thought
driving
Latrice was alive still, or that she
Correct.
might still be alive.
if we could just
Correct.
get there. We
Correct.
just needed to get there.
And you said that your mom told you she did it, and you repeated that message to Carmen. So when you said she did it, was this something that you all were expecting to happen? Were you waiting for it? Were you scared about it for a long time?
prior to the day, I do remember she started off, whenever her depression kicked in, she started off as, feeling worthless. I don't want to be here. I just feel like I'm a burden. So we took that as, okay, she's expressing her feelings to us. We're okay. As long as we know how she feels, we're supporting her, we're making sure she's taking her medicine, we'd be okay. Maybe a couple of weeks passed, she started saying what she wanted to do. I just feel like getting a gun. I just feel like getting a gun. And then this sparked in our mind, like, wait a minute, now she's sounding like she knows what she wants to do. But at the same time, knowing Latrice, we still were like, she would never do that. She has too much, she's still talking to us. So prior, she did mention, she wanted to get a gun. And actually the day before, she told me what she wanted to do. And I got her to the doctor that day. But unfortunately, we were not advised correctly.
What was so incredible to me when I was reading this book was how much the two of you did on your own to help Latrice, and how little professional help was available to you, that you sought it out so many times, and so many people just basically told you all to handle it on your own. One doctor even said, just get her the meds.
Yes.
Get them to her.
Yes.
And the fact that you had brought her in the day before to the hospital, she was sent back home, and that was the day that she went to a pawn shop and acquired a gun with no hassle, to your knowledge.
Yeah, to our knowledge.
Right. I think when she was diagnosed, because she was diagnosed about 10 years ago for the first time. So the very first time we even were told that she had bipolar disorder, we really didn't even know what that meant, and there wasn't really kind of a session or a sit down that said, okay, this is what this means, this is what it means for the family, for the friends. So I think the only thing that was really kind of stressed to us was that she needed to take medication, and that was it. So we really followed that to the T because that's all we were told. So after the fact, I think that's how we started kind of, when the aftermath was writing this book, was that we really found out there was resources out there, and that is something that is a lifelong commitment, and there was more of a support group that we could have given her. So that's why it was very important for us to write every detail possible that we wanted to share, because I think how it started with the book was that we didn't want no one to experience that, what we went through. And it was really kind of just me and her, just going with everything step by step, just, not knowing where to reach out to.
Well, that was so clear to me, and while mental illness was much more stigmatized 10 years ago. What really struck me was that very recently, right before Latrice passed away, I think it was you who mentioned police officer basically manhandling her to get her into the car, treating her like she was a suspect of a crime, not a mentally ill person.
Yeah, that day is one of the worst memories that I can remember, because all we were trying to do was admit her into a facility so she could get treatment and help. We had told them that she was having a manic episode and that she was not herself, but because she was of age, they would not admit her unless she willingly admitted herself or she was a threat to society or herself. So they did send out, they told us we had to call out the police. So we called the police. One lady came out, and she was very sweet, very kind, and knew exactly how to handle her. The problem came in when this white policeman came in, and he just kind of took it to the next level. She got out the car willingly. She got into the cop car, but what he did was he made it more of a scene like we needed to get back, and he had it under control, and she saw that things were not as comfortable for her, and kind of, I guess, realized that things were going to be out of her control, because even though she was in manic, she still understood that something was going on within, that she did not want to go back to the facility, and we knew this, but this was our only hope. So then he told us to get back, like we were criminals, and we're like, we just want to help our sister. She's not a criminal. Right now, she's having an episode. She is having a manic episode, and he didn't want to hear us. He treated us like we weren't anybody, and he treated her like she wasn't anybody, threw her in there, and she's screaming outside of the window at us like, what is going on? Help me, why are you doing this? And it just made us feel like we were treating her badly as well. That was one of the main things that I just didn't understand, why there's not a psychiatrist, a therapist, a counselor, anybody on site when the police do have to pick up and handle these type of situations. We really didn't understand what was going on.
So it's been 4 years since Latrice passed away, and since you've had a number of these experiences, probably about 4 or 5 years. When you look at what's going on in the media today, you all have devoted a large part of your lives to bipolar awareness. Do you feel like we're making strides? Do you feel like we're heading in the right direction? Or do you think that if this were to happen again today, you would probably go through the same exact thing?
I believe we're making strides. We're still seeing the issue, definitely. But even by them putting, I think media as far as the news can show more of a positive light. I do believe we need to see more of a positive light on mental health awareness, on what can be done, that it is treatable, that there are facilities. I think what they're showing more is that there is suicide or someone
the terrorism that's caused by people
someone's
with
going
mental
in and
illness.
just automatically shooting up a place versus sharing the backstory of, you know, who these people were. The positive side, I believe, is when we see shows like Empire, and then recently we heard about another show called Shameless that are showing these individuals that have bipolar, so it's giving a little bit more of an insight and also starting conversation on, well, what is this person going through and why are they acting like that? If you have questions like that for me, I'd rather you have them versus just pass judgment. So I think things like that is what's helping right now. But definitely we need more awareness as far as the media and the news, I think.
So speaking of awareness, you all made the biggest step you could towards bringing more awareness to bipolar disorder by writing this book, Another Day with Her. So many people have these horrible things happen to them in their lives, and they say, I'm going to write a book about it. I'm going to tell everybody my story. And then when it comes down to it, either it's been too long since the incident, or you know, we don't want to get back in touch with that pain. So it's so clear to me how much you both loved her to write this book in her memory. And I want to know, what is it that made you do the biggest thing you could do for bipolar awareness and write this book about your experiences with Latrice?
I think the main thing was I started writing the book. It was more of a journal kind of healing process for me. And I don't remember the conversation that I mentioned it to Laura, but I think going back into the experiences and what we went through, and even the aftermath, dealing with the lawyers and selling her house and just dealing with someone passing, just dealing with that, I think it became the story that we wanted to just share. We didn't know where it was going to go, but we wanted to make sure step by step that we didn't leave anything out, because that was the main thing, going back into the stigma of having a mental illness. She really promised us not to tell anyone, so it was really a handful of people that even knew what was going on. There was an event that she had, one of her last events, because she was a realtor, had her own real estate company, and she had a seminar. She had these events to kind of showcase, you know, first home buyers. And she had an episode that day, which we all knew. And at that point, she had lost weight. We were all freaking out about what would happen.
Right.
So
but
nobody knew. Nobody knew what was going on. So when we wrote the book, we went back and forth as far as what to share, what not to share. But then we decided, hey, we need to be unfiltered, because this is the only way that we're really going to get that across, the message across. So it really, did relive each part, writing that book and editing and all, but after the final version, we loved everything that we wrote about it, because it really went back into the awareness in bipolar disorder and what it is to have someone that's suffering for it, and the support that you need to give someone.
Well, you touched on a lot of things towards the end of your book in terms of bringing awareness to these issues that are causing grief all across America and all across the world, but especially in America. And two of those issues are mental illness and gun control. What did you discover? I know what you discovered because I read the book, but for our audience that hasn't, what did you discover looking into both of those issues, especially about how many people who are advocates for gun rights actually are still in favor of gun control laws that would have prevented your sister from buying that gun that day? What did you learn about those two issues that you really want to communicate to people and make sure they understand?
I think the main thing that we were shocked about was the how accessible it was for her to get a gun. And we didn't know that it was a pawn shop till after all her bills were coming into the house, and so we saw a statement on her credit card that showed, that she had purchased that.
And to be clear here, if you haven't read the book, Latrice was checked into the hospital the day that she went to the pawn shop to buy that gun, or the day before. She had gone to the hospital and she was told that she didn't need to be there, that she was okay.
Correct.
And she went to the pawn shop right after going to the hospital for a mental illness and purchased a lethal weapon.
Right. So that was we at that point we really didn't understand that it was that easy. Basically just check your credit, background check, within 15, 20 minutes of that process. So I think that was shocking to us that it's still, we wanted to become advocates on that, on finding a way to be able to connect that if someone is diagnosed by a professional, facility, that there has to be some type of connection that shouldn't be available so easily to them or at all. So I think that was a shock to us to find out that that was her method of choice, and that we really didn't even know about it. So.
Wow. Do you have anything you wanted to say to that?
It's another thing is with the guns, normally from the statistics it shows that gun shootings would not be preferred by what women would normally do. Because even the doctor mentioned to us that she's not going to take her pills, or if anything, just watch her pills, because it was stated more so that women will overdose on pills versus shoot themselves. So I think that was another thing. It was like, a gun, what are you talking about? And it's sad because after her passing, we even looked through her car and found that she had a paper for gun classes for her to take to learn how to shoot it and handle it and everything. And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Right. Another thing, we also advocate now not only on bipolar disorder, because one thing that we did learn that it is a treatable condition, and I think going back into the negative stigma behind it is because a lot of people just don't know how to treat it or how to go about it. But it's something that we've come across a lot of people that say, oh, I'm bipolar disorder, or my aunt is, or my mother, and they've lived, lives that are positive. So we want to share those stories, and we definitely like to share our own story, because
Right.
I think that goes back into the stigma behind mental illness. And then for us, we became advocates of suicide prevention as well, because looking back and that we learn now, she did give every warning sign in the last probably month. And I think for us, when we were misguided, when she, Laura and her mom took her to the doctor really the day before, and we expressed a concern, she expressed a concern, and the doctor just kind of had a stigma towards her too, because he was like, oh no, she doesn't look like your typical person that would do it, or
She's high functioning.
She's high functioning.
She's not
And
like-
so I think we, at that point, professionals telling you this, so we were like, oh, okay, well then she's fine. And the sad part about it is that the aftermath, the day after, the doctor called to check to see how is she, literally the day after, and we were like, no, she shot herself. And I think
And what did that doctor say?
he didn't say anything. I think I grabbed the phone. I don't remember. I
Probably
think
did.
I was the one that grabbed the
I think
phone.
I was in shock. 'Cause-
Yes, and so he didn't say anything. It was just like a long pause, and I think he just said, I'm sorry for your loss, and
Yes.
hung up. That was it. So I think that really was the main driven point that I think pushed us to write this book, because even after, I think a month later, 2 months later, after we kind of were a little bit trying to get back on our feet, I called the doctor myself to get her medical records. Her mom had to write a release, but at first they were a little bit hesitant, and I really wanted to find out what was on that record as far as that last visit. And that was really kind of a driven point for us to make sure that this doesn't happen to another family, because for us, if it was that easy for him to just say, continue pushing the medication on her, then it's fine. And that's something that we're definitely advocates as far as someone is mentioning any type of warning signs that they're, they don't feel like being in this world anymore, or anything that has to do with the thoughts of just committing suicide, that to take it very seriously, because we really we missed those points, and we go back into making sure that if we run into families or people that come to us, say, hey, this is what you need to find and look for.
So when that doctor called you and asked you how your best friend was doing, what did you say?
I think I answered, and he said, how is she? And I said, she killed herself. She shot herself yesterday. And it was a very long pause, and I just remember I almost wanted to go off on him, but I think emotionally he just paused and said, I'm sorry for your loss, and I think I just hung up. Because to me, it was, how dare him call us the next day. But after that, that's why we were big advocates now on the suicide prevention part of it, because we did miss a lot of those warning signs.
And you said that the doctor didn't think that she was a risk because she was high functioning.
She was high functioning. She said she didn't look like your typical I guess, patients that.
Right. He even compared her and was like, I have another patient that, oh yeah, I know I have to watch him, but your sister, no, she'll be fine. Just give me a week. Prescribed another pill and sent us on our way.
And now, having done all this research, even though many doctors don't, or many professionals wouldn't have known that your sister was sick, was that sick. That she was exhibiting all of these suicide signs.
And I think she said it. She actually did say it at the visit of the doctor what she was going to do. So I think at that point that was towards the end of her feeling, what else can I do? And I think the moment that the doctor just prescribed another type of medication, I think that was in her mind probably like, I can't do it anymore. This is another medication that I have to take. And I think that was just the last straw.
I think it also brought to our attention to make sure that you get second opinion, third opinion if you don't feel comfortable, and go with your gut. In our mind, we're thinking this is the doctor. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's gonna, he's not gonna steer us wrong. And in this, case, it just, the next day it was too late.
Well, pardon me for injecting my opinion, but having done a lot of research on bipolar disorder in preparation for this interview, I have found that in many chat rooms, people who struggle from bipolar disorder, who have been diagnosed medications, are not happy on those medications. They have issues. They go back to their doctor. Their medicine gets readjusted. I think it goes without saying that there are so many options for people struggling with bipolar disorder. So to have someone miserable who doesn't like what their doctor is prescribing them, those people need to know that there are choices, that they do not have to stay that way. And what you all are doing through this book and through livebeautifullynow.org, which we'll talk about in a minute, is making sure people know that. So your sister, who was very high functioning, she was a real estate agent, and her slogan was living beautifully. And you all have taken that and you are using that to pass on the message of her life. Can you tell me more about livingbeautifullynow.org?
Well, she actually, her motto in her real estate company was opening doors to living beautifully. So after her passing, we decided to create a nonprofit organization. I have no clue where that came about, but we were just like, let's do this.
Let's do it.
And we wanted to kind of capture a little bit about her. So we wanted to really incorporate about, living life beautifully. And so we decided to keep a portion of that motto and just put Live Beautiful Now, because at that moment she did love life. She loved everything about life. She loved being here. And so we wanted to really express that with the theme of the organization and the focus on bringing the awareness that it is something that she really loved, her friends and traveling. And so part of the awareness is that we wanted to kind of incorporate all that and really talk about the awareness of being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and also the suicide prevention of it.
So if people watching this today are struggling with bipolar disorder, they can go to your website. It's livebeautifully.org. And learn more about your journey and what you wish you'd known 4 years ago.
Yes. livebeautifulnow.org.
Live Beautiful Now.
Yes, absolutely. We feel that sharing our story, as in the book, I know when Latrice passed away, there were a lot of judgments passed on her suicide, and I felt like, to me, it was very important to express the type of person she was, to show that she loved life, to show that this is a chemical imbalance, that this is a brain disorder, that this is not something that she came up with on her own to say that I don't want to be here. This is something more than that. So if anyone expresses that, you have to take it very, very seriously. So I felt it was very important, Carmen and I felt it was very important to make sure individuals knew who exactly Latrice was, so if they were struggling or if they knew someone who was struggling, they could relate, to be like, oh my goodness, it's not just, in my mind, it's not just that person on the street that you see talking to themselves. Because to me, I had it in my mind as well. I stigmatized many people with mental illnesses, and this opened up my eyes. Crazy was maybe one of the words that I would possibly say, and now, I kick myself today to be like, wow, I cannot believe that I was so ignorant not to see that there are many individuals who struggle with depression, which is the number one mental disorder that a lot of individuals don't even understand or know.
Right.
So it's very important that Latrice's message, her living legacy, helps other lives in a positive way, to show that, she didn't die in vain. She died because she's going to help many people see that you can live with this. This is her story, and it is to help others.
Well, because of you two and because of the book and because of your foundation, she already is living out that legacy and has made such a difference in the world through both of you. I can't thank you both enough for being my guests today and for your bravery and your courage in writing this book. Another Day with Her is available in Barnes & Nobles in Houston, in River Oaks, and online as well on Amazon.com. Thank you both again for being here, and livebeautifulnow.org, excuse me for the mistake earlier. You can visit if you'd like to know more. Thank you all. I'm Laura Max Rose, and I'll see you next time.